Today we're talking about truth, goodness, and beauty. We call these the transcendentals. And believe it or not, this is what underlies the curriculum at New Covenant schools. It's unlike any other school that you've experienced, and most people don't understand what we mean when we talk about these terms. So we're going to unpack them today and explain to you exactly how they influence our curriculum. Truth, goodness, and beauty are transcendentals, and by that we simply mean that they are ultimates. There's nothing beyond them, and we pursue them as ends in and of themselves for their own sake, and not because they have utilitarian value in any other sense. So when we talk about taking care of a child, for example, we do what is right for the child for his own sake. It's not a means to another end. And that's what a transcendental is. Something that's ultimate, that explains why we behave the way we do. It's something that's pursued as an end in itself because it's a good in and of itself. It's our contention in the classical Christian vision that God makes the world in such a way that it actually reveals and expresses himself and his own character, his own nature. So when we approach education and we propose to teach children about the world that God has made, then it would suggest to us that the highest order first off would be to set up a curriculum that pursued truth, goodness, and beauty for its own sake. We can talk about truth, goodness, and beauty in separate ways. We can divide them out. They answer different questions and they overcome different things. Truth addresses the question of what is real, what is reality. It answers the question, what should I know? And to pursue the truth in the Christian vision, of course, is to start with the scriptures, which we believe reveal what we can know about God. We live in a world in which we are creatures made in his image that conform ourselves to the reality of what is. In other words, we don't get to make up reality. We don't get to define reality. We get to discern reality and then conform ourselves to that. And that's what the process of education does. It lays out to us what we can know of the world and what we know so far about the world, but then we conform ourselves to it. So truth is the first question. It answers what is reality, and then it overcomes the human deficit that we call ignorance. To move from ignorance to truth, that's the whole point of being educated. But being educated truly means that we are observing and rightly apprehending what is real and what actually is. When we talk about goodness, we're talking about a completely different question, although it is related. We're not so much talking about what is reality or what should I know. We're talking more about what should I do. And goodness can be a cluster of things that we choose. It can be right behaviors, or it can be right sensibilities, what the medievals called prudence, knowing what is right, the highest thing to do in a particular situation. But taken all together, goodness tells me how to behave. Goodness is that which overcomes our propensity and a child's propensity to vice or to those things that lead to our own unhappiness. So we start in Christian instruction with the Ten Commandments. And if that sounds like Sunday school, we should not perceive it that way. The Ten Commandments are not just a religious posture that we teach to children, but it's actually a way of pursuing the good. The Ten Commandments are the encodification of God's moral character, and those are imprinted, if you will, into the created order itself. And so there's certain things that we do, we bring our behaviors into conformity with the way God ordered the world. And when we live in a way that's ordered in God's world, we wind up with an orderly life. An orderly life tends then to the achievement of what the ancients called the good. It's achieving human flourishing. The third transcendental addresses the question of how should I feel Or more specifically, what should I love? It's the concept of beauty. And it's often that part of the transcendentals, which is more or less non-cognitive. When we look at a beautiful piece of art, listen to a beautiful piece of music, we look at a beautiful natural landscape or stand in front of the ocean, we sort of take it in all at once, and we don't think about it, we experience it. And that experience begins to shape our appetites toward what is beautiful, and it begins to overcome the human deficit of ugliness, what is ugly. Beauty is itself an objective thing that we can apprehend. And of course, the way it has been defined in the history of humankind has to do with proportion and coherence and integrity and maturity and a harmony of the parts, something that has obvious form and structure. And when we encounter those things, whether they're in nature or whether they're in human creations, we don't have to analyze it, although we can, but we can just experience it for what it is and enjoy it with no other end in view. Think about this. We have been placed into a world that appears to be ordered for our enjoyment. We are suited to the kind of world in which we find ourselves. That means that beauty and its pursuit are inescapable, and what kinds of things we cultivate as beautiful awaken in us a certain kind of moral response. So the final question that we should probably think about is how do we take these grand concepts of transcendentals, truth, goodness, and beauty, and how do we make them writ small for little people? And that's actually not as hard as it may seem. A school should be in the business of shaping the mind and the heart and the desires of a student. That's simple. Truth, goodness, and beauty are labels that we put on those things, and they sound complicated. But in fact, introducing a school that has an ordered environment, telling a young child that there is right and wrong and there's a better way to behave, showing a student something that is beautiful. So we begin with the end in mind. The end is to create a human being, or to develop an educated human being who has cultivated sensibilities about what is true and what is good and sure, what is beautiful. And so in teaching in a classical Christian tradition, we're simply teaching in a way consistent with the way God has made the world and the way God has made human beings to flourish.